Welcome back to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely shocking financial investigation unfolding right now on the Maldives. You know, we often hear about these massive corporate transactions and complex global finance deals, but today, well, we're looking at something deeply unsettling. We're talking about a quiet, massive transfer of wealth that is literally stripping ordinary citizens of their stake in their country's most lucrative industry. It's a nine-figure asset, a devastating loss for the public, and a maneuver that totally bypasses every standard of commercial valuation. So grab your notepad, because you're definitely going to want to follow the math on this one.
So the question we're starting with today isn't just some hypothetical. We're literally asking, how do you legally steal $117.5 million? It sounds crazy, right? But we're looking at a massive transfer of wealth that's completely bypassing standard commercial value by exploiting a startling statutory loophole. This isn't your standard run-of-the-mill business transaction. Not at all. It is the deliberate, calculated engineering of a deal that essentially treats a public corporate transaction like a legalized heist. To truly grasp how this works, we really need to look at what's actually being transferred here.
First up, let's look at the prize. The mark in this scenario is a highly lucrative, prime luxury resort property head lease. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the term, a head lease is basically the master key. It grants total control over the island, its operations, and of course its profits. We're not talking about some empty plot of sand here. This property carries immense future cash flows, deeply established brand equity, and significant physical infrastructure. And maybe most importantly, this head lease is legally valid and securely locked in until the year 2030. It's an absolute golden goose in one of the most desirable tourism markets on the entire planet. Now, you'd probably assume the keys to this massive asset are held by some massive private equity firm, right?
Actually, wrong. This asset isn't owned by a wealthy foreign conglomerate, and it isn't the property of some private billionaire. It's legally held by the MTDC, the Maldives Tourism Development Corporation. And here is the absolutely critical context you need to understand just how significant this is. The MTDC wasn't created to act as some convenient middleman for wealthy foreign resort operators. It was explicitly founded with one very specific mission: to ensure that the incredible wealth generated by the Maldivian tourism industry actually reaches the average citizen. So at its core, this asset belongs to everyday working-class Maldivians. It's literally their stake in their own country's booming industry. Okay, here is where the math becomes absolutely staggering. The true commercial market value of this luxury resort lease, meaning what global investors would fully expect to pay for the future cash flows, the infrastructure, and the equity, is approximately $119 million. Yet the transfer fee being paid by the current wealthy resort management to take direct ownership, entirely bypassing the actual market rate, is just $1.5 million. Let that sink in for a second. A $119 million asset is being handed over for $1.5 million. It is an astronomical, jaw-dropping disparity.
So, what's the trick to this astonishing discount? Well, it's hidden right in plain sight. That $1.5 million, it's not a purchase price at all. It's merely a flat, statutory administrative fee mandated by the government, simply to register a change in the leaseholder. Think about that. If the current private operator wants to bypass the MTDC and own the lease directly, standard business practice dictates they should buy out the MTDC at that $119 million commercial market rate. Instead, by accepting only this tiny administrative tax, the board of directors is voluntarily waiving a $117.5 million buyout premium. They are effectively giving away a nine-figure asset for a one-figure administrative tax. It's wild.
And who pays the price for this? 24,000. That is the number of ordinary working-class Maldivians who hold shares in the MTDC. They are the true victims of this engineered loophole. We're looking at a stark, frankly heartbreaking contrast here. On one side, you've got wealthy resort executives securing a world-class, income-generating asset for absolute pennies on the dollar. And on the other side, you've 24,000 everyday citizens whose public wealth is being quietly and systematically stripped right away from them.
Let's break those numbers down even further. When a $119 million asset is just surrendered for a $1.5 million fee, the total lost public value is that $117.5 million. If you take that massive loss and divide it by the 24,000 shareholders, this deal is effectively reaching right into the pockets of those families. We're talking about a direct financial loss of nearly $5,000, about $4,895 per person to be exact. In local currency, that's permanently deleting roughly 75,500 Maldivian rupiah of equity from every single shareholder. For a working-class family, that isn't just a number on a spreadsheet.
That is a devastating, life-altering loss of wealth.
But wait, the financial hemorrhage doesn't even stop at just the lost equity. To make matters worse, losing this head lease entirely strips the public corporation of its guaranteed rental income. And this is the very income the MTDC desperately relies on to pay out annual dividends to these 24,000 families. These aren't wealthy investors brushing off a bad quarter, right? These are regular people relying on those dividend checks to help pay for everyday necessities, healthcare, and their kids' education. It's a double blow. They lose the massive intrinsic value of the asset itself, and they lose the recurring revenue stream that was explicitly designed to support their livelihoods.
This brings us to a really fundamental concept in corporate law: fiduciary duty. Basically, this is the strict legal obligation of a board of directors to act in the best financial interests of its shareholders and to maximize their wealth. By surrendering a major income-generating asset, one that's fully valid until 2030, for a nominal government transfer fee, the board of directors is engaging in a catastrophic failure of corporate governance. It's a direct, undeniable violation of their fiduciary duty to those 24,000 Maldivian citizens. Ultimately, it is a profound betrayal of public trust.
Now, proponents of these types of deals, they'll often try to justify them. They'll push this narrative claiming that these backdoor arrangements just have to be handled quietly to protect international relationships and maintain mutual trust with foreign investors. But the reality presented in the financial investigation is exactly the opposite. Global investors fully expect to pay fair market value for prime real estate. Holding conglomerates to standard commercial principles doesn't hurt relations at all. It actually legitimizes the Maldives as a safe, transparent, and fair jurisdiction for investment.
As the investigative brief clearly points out, and I love this quote, "True mutual trust is built on transparency and the protection of local stakeholders, not the exploitation of statutory loopholes. Giving away public wealth for a fraction of its worth absolutely destroys trust rather than building it. When backdoor deals are used to secure assets for a fraction of their worth, it just signals to the global market that the environment isn't fair, open, or transparent."
Fortunately, the public and the shareholders aren't just sitting idly by. To stop this disenfranchisement, they're demanding accountability through 3 clear, actionable steps. Number 1, an immediate halt to the lease transfer. This is absolutely crucial to stop the bleeding before the asset changes hands permanently. Number 2, conducting an independent international financial audit. This officially and objectively establishes the true commercial valuation of the property, wiping out any ambiguity. And number 3, ensuring that any transfer of lease rights before the year 2030 strictly reflects that $119 million value. These steps are absolutely essential to guarantee that the wealth generated by Maldivian islands actually stays in the hands of the Maldivian people.
So we are left with a critical, urgent question for the regulatory bodies and the Ministry of Tourism. If they facilitate this, they are complicit in disenfranchising the public. Will they actually allow a $119 million public asset to be quietly siphoned away for a $1.5 million administrative fee? Or will they step up to stop this staggering betrayal of public trust and hold the orchestrators accountable? The world, and more importantly, 24,000 Maldivian families are watching very, very closely. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those tough questions, and I'll see you in the next one.